The landmark case Griggs versus Duke Power decision transformed the landscape of employment law and civil rights, addressing the issues of workplace discrimination that still resonate today. Despite the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, in the 1960s, as the civil rights movement was in full swing, Duke Power maintained policies that disproportionately disadvantaged African American workers. The case challenged these practices and led to a groundbreaking ruling by the Supreme Court. The decision introduced the concept of adverse impact, what we call disparate impact, a standard that would forever change how we think about equality and fairness in the workplace. Duke Power was a major employer in North Carolina in the 1960s, and like many other companies in the South at the time, it openly practiced racial discrimination. In 1955, Duke Power introduced a policy requiring employees seeking promotion to pass a high school diploma requirement and 2 standardized aptitude tests, the Wonderlic Cognitive Ability Test and the Bennett Mechanical Comprehension Test. On the surface, these requirements seemed neutral, but in practice, they disproportionately excluded African American employees who had less access to quality education due to systematic racism. These barriers effectively prevented them from moving up within the company, maintaining the status quo of racial inequality. White employees were given more desirable and higher paying positions. In 1966, a group of African American employees at Duke Power, led by Willie Griggs, filed a class action lawsuit against the company. They argued that the high school diploma and the standardized test requirements were discriminatory, violating the Title VII of Civil Rights Act of 1964. Title VII prohibits employment practices that discriminate on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. The legal argument presented by Griggs and his co-workers was not that Duke Power had intentionally discriminated against them, but rather that the company's policies had an unjustified adverse impact or disparate impact on African American employees. In other words, even if the policy were applied equally to all employees, they disproportionately harmed one racial group over another. The case worked its way through the lower courts with mixed results until it finally reached the United States Supreme Court in 1970. On March 8, 1971, the Supreme Court delivered its unanimous decision in Griggs versus Duke Power Company. The court ruled in favor of Griggs and his fellow plaintiffs, making a significant victory for civil rights and employment law. Chief Justice Warren Burger, right for the court, stated that under Title VII, employment practices that are fair in form but discriminatory in operation are prohibited. This means that even if an employer did not intend to discriminate, they could still be held liable if their policies had a disparate impact on a protected group and were not directly related to job performance. The court further emphasized that the burden of proof was on the employer to show that any such employment requirement were a business necessity. In other words, that they were essential for the job in question. Duke Power could not demonstrate that the high school diploma and aptitude tests were generally related to job performance. As a quick summary, the Supreme Court decision established 2 critical points. Employment discrimination need not be overt or intentional to be unlawful. Employment practices can be unlawful even when applied to all employees. When an employer established an employment practices such as an educational requirement or a test score, the employer must be able to justify its actions as being job-related and consistent with a business necessity. Practices, protocols, or tests that appear neutral on their face and even neutral in their intent and it results in discriminatory effect on a protected class without the above justification are illegal. Even the practices apply to all employees. Now, think about your own employment journey. Did you experience any practice, procedures, or tests for your employment decisions, such as being hired or promoted? Do you think these practices are directly related to business necessities, or it could be biased towards a certain group of people? Thanks for watching.